This is Apropos. The world's most watched song contest is shaping up for a major test this Thursday when members meet to discuss the participation of Israel. The competition, which claims to be non-political, has been rocked by protests since the start of the war in Gaza. After several countries threatened to boycott next year's contest, organisers announced new rules last month aimed at discouraging governments from disproportionately promoting songs to influence voters, as Vedica Bahal reports.
It's a major test for the world's most beloved international song competition. Members of the European Broadcasting Union, the body that organises Eurovision, will meet Thursday to decide whether Israel can compete in 2026. Public broadcasters from Spain, Slovenia, the Netherlands and Ireland have threatened to withdraw if Israel participates, citing the Palestinian death toll in Gaza due to Israel's offensive. A boycott could be a blow for sponsorship and viewership, particularly by Spain, which is one of the big five contributing countries.
We hold the same position we had months ago when we said Israel's participation in the Eurovision festival was untenable for two main reasons. Firstly, because of the genocide it has perpetrated in Gaza. Eurovision is, of course, a contest, but human rights are not a contest.
Eurovision has always aimed to remain apolitical, but Israel's participation has heavily influenced the last few editions. This year, critics accused Israel of unfairly boosting support for its entrant Yuval Raphael, a survivor of the October 7th attacks, pushing her to a second-place finish despite little backing from professional juries. The controversy pushed EBU to change its voting rules, aimed at pacifying angry member states. Members will discuss Thursday whether these new rules are adequate, or else there will be a vote on participation.
It will be a real kind of watershed moment, I think, in the history of Eurovision. It will be the first time, really, we've got a serious political issue that's really affected many participating countries. I think it probably has to go to a vote because you've got a lot of countries that threaten to withdraw if Israel take part. You've also got other countries that are rumoured to be withdrawing if Israel are forced out. So I think it has to be somehow dealt with by consensus.
Should Israel be voted out, it wouldn't be the first country to be barred. Russia has been excluded from Eurovision since its 2022 invasion of Ukraine, and Belarus since 2021. Eurovision 2026 is scheduled to take place next May in Austria.
Well, to discuss all of this, we're joined by Dean Vuletic, historian of the Eurovision Song Contest and author of Postwar Europe and the Eurovision Song Contest. Dean, thanks so much for being with us. As we heard there in that report, some people are describing this as a watershed moment for the Eurovision. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I've researched the history of Eurovision. I've written a book about it, and I can say that this is one of the most serious crises that Eurovision has ever faced. It's the first time where we really see such deep divisions in the European Broadcasting Union over a political issue.
And describe to us with a little bit more detail, please, what these new rules are that were voted in last month.
Well, the new rules would bring back the expert juries to vote in the semi-finals. Now, in 2023, the European Broadcasting Union decided that it was just enough to have the public vote in the semi-finals and to maintain the 50% jury voting, 50% public televoting in the grand finals. But now there's a return to having the 50-50 rule in the semi-finals as well. There will also be limits placed on the number of votes that the televoters can make. Up until now, it has been 20. This will be reduced to 10. And there will also be rules brought in to limit the potential for the political manipulation of the voting, especially through the organisation of promotional campaigns by political organisations, including governments.
And do you think the broadcasters more or less are going to be happy with these new rules, or do you think tomorrow's meeting is going to proceed to that vote over the participation of Israel?
It's difficult to say. I think that it's unlikely that there would be a vote to exclude Israel from Eurovision. I think that there are simply not enough broadcasters which would support this. and we're more likely to see other countries boycotting the countries that were previously mentioned: Spain, Slovenia, the Netherlands, and Ireland, and probably Iceland. We're more likely to see them boycotting next year than we are to see Israel excluded.
And the fact that the EBU brought in these changes, does that suggest to you that in fact that is likely the way things are going to go, that we won't actually proceed to that vote because of the changes that are going to be implemented?
Well, we have to wait and see what the discussion actually is. I think the changes are unlikely to be rejected, but I think they're unlikely to satisfy a lot of the concerns of the key players behind the boycott, the 4 countries that I mentioned.
And Spain is traditionally one of the big players when it comes to the Eurovision. If they were to boycott this event, the other nations would have smaller TV audiences. But how much of a blow would that be if Spain were to pull out and were to decide not to show the contest on TV next year?
It would be a huge blow. This is one of the biggest national markets for Eurovision. Remember also that the Spanish language popular music market is one of the biggest in the world. So this is also an opportunity for Eurovision to attract viewers across the world, including in Spanish-speaking Latin America. So losing Spain would certainly be a big blow for the contest. Losing Ireland as well, which holds the record number of wins in Eurovision, and losing a country like Iceland would also be a big blow, considering Iceland has the highest proportion of its viewing of a national viewing audience watching Eurovision. So losing any of these countries is really going to cause damage to the contest, but Spain especially, because it is the biggest out of all of them.
And would it cause more damage, for example, if that were to be the case, than if Israel was actually banned from the competition and the likes of Germany, Austria decide then to boycott the event? Is there a worst case scenario here for the EBU?
Losing any of the participants in Eurovision, I think, is going to cause some sort of damage, as I just said. So I think that if excluding Israel also means that countries will boycott Eurovision in support of Israel, of course, that is also going to be a big shock for the contest, especially if it is a big player like Germany. Austria supports Israel's participation in the contest. Austria is hosting next year. It's the 70th anniversary. Austria wants as many countries to come as possible, but it is unlikely to boycott itself, considering that it is the host. I should point out, though, that it's rather ironic because Austria was the first country that ever boycotted Eurovision for political reasons, and that was in 1969 when it refused to attend Eurovision in Madrid when it was staged by the government of dictator Francisco Franco.
And as we know, and as we heard in that report, Eurovision likes to, portray itself as being apolitical. So why then was Russia banned in 2022? And what essentially is the difference between Israel and Russia when it comes to whether or not countries should boycott the event or whether or not they should be banned also?
Yes, the difference when it came to Russia was that there was a political consensus around excluding Russia from Eurovision, a political consensus that was achieved in the context of a broader consensus among European governments to impose sanctions against Russia. Now, there weren't any sanctions imposed against Israel, so the European Broadcasting Union couldn't use this reason to exclude Israel from the contest. So you really need a broader political consensus that the European Broadcasting Union and its members can work in order to exclude a member. The sanctions against Israel weren't there.
And do you think that no matter how the meeting goes tomorrow, are we still likely to see a repeat of the protests that we've seen surrounding the event itself over the past couple of years?
I think we are very likely to see those, considering that there has been so much talk of boycott in recent months. I think we're likely to see the protests continue next year in Vienna. But I should point out that these protests aren't a recent thing. They didn't emerged just in reaction to the war in Gaza. They actually started in 2019 when there was a global campaign by the Boycott, Divest and Sanctions movement, a pro-Palestinian movement, for countries to boycott Eurovision when it was staged in Tel Aviv in 2019. So these protests have been going on for quite some years now.
And finally, Dean, what exactly is it about the Eurovision that seems to prompt such passion in certain countries in any case? Isn't it just simply at the end of the day a song contest?
Well, it's a song contest in which you see countries competing against each other. Now, it's national public service broadcasters that are members of the European Broadcasting Union which submit the entries, but these entries compete under the names of countries, and whenever you have countries competing against each other, things are bound to get political. Now, this is such a huge event, around 160 million viewers watching every year, so it's also a big platform to send messages about a country. They can be touristic messages, they can be messages about a country's culture, about its social diversity, but they can also be political messages.
Dean, thanks so much for being with us this evening. That's Dean Vuletic, Eurovision Song Contest historian and expert. Thanks so much for your time on the programme.